The German automaker reporting a 42% drop in its operating profit in its third quarter earnings report. To discuss, we've got Yahoo Finance's Pras Subramanian. Pras, shares are still up 2%. All right, so what's the big deal?
Well, the reason why is that they could have been worse. That's the reason why shares are slightly up here. So you mentioned that 42% operating profit plunge. That's down to $3.1 billion in the third quarter. Revenue also slipping from a year ago. And its operating margin fell to just 3.6%, down from 6.2. This is the lowest they've had in 4 years. Not surprisingly, global sales in the Q3 down 8.3%. It kept its outlook that it had cut last month, so it maintained that outlook, but that had been cut throughout the year. Like I said, believe it or not, shares are up here because analysts, investors thought it could even be worse, and that's not a great thing for VW. And the company sort of also mired in tough talks with the unions. VW says it will close probably three plants in Germany, which is sort of unheard of for many, many years, if not 20, 30 years. That's not been the case. They've also announced they're going to close an Audi plant in Brussels where they make an EV there. So there's a reckoning here for VW, and we haven't even talked about China.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about China and some of the trouble there.
For about 20 years, VW was the top-selling brand in China with its JV joint venture operations with other Chinese automakers. Of course, now that's been slipping tremendously, and they're under tremendous threat from local Chinese automakers like Li Auto and BYD. In fact, they're turning to other new Chinese automakers to sort of fill the gap there and try to make more vehicles that are attractive to that domestic audience. We've seen Stellantis do that too with XPeng, I believe.
Pras, I wonder for how much kind of fanfare, I guess we can say, we've seen around the Cybertruck, or people just being really blown away by or jarred by the look of it. On the other end of it, you've got Volkswagen with perhaps the antithesis or the opposite end of the spectrum to the Cybertruck, which is a very friendly VW ID Buzz here. Is that gaining any traction?
The VW Buzz has a nice sort of nostalgia trade here. Right? Many people love that vehicle from the 70s and 80s, and it was like a cheap way to actually not just get around the country, but also people lived in those things. The problem with in my mind, the VW ID Buzz now is I think it's around $60,000 in the US, which is seemingly a luxury automobile, right? That seems like it's sort of out of place, and or I should say out of touch or out of reach for many people that might be fans of that car. So I think that's an issue that VW is dealing with, is the fact that some of their vehicles are not desirable at this point for the VW brand itself, and then also maybe too pricey, and they might need to come down a bit there.